to get them a little bit, you know, riled up.
Absolutely. So anytime you can see someone either laughing or squirming in your seat is
Right.
good feedback as a speaker.
Yeah. Yeah. Better they should squirm than you. You know, it's like if you're the speaker, it's better to put them a little bit on edge and have control, as long as it's real control, and have like a really good handle on what you're doing, than be subject to the mood of the audience. Like, I'm going to
Absolutely.
have a good time on stage no matter what. The audience will hopefully be with me. But you can lose audiences and win them back. We've seen comedians and we've seen speakers do it all the time.
I think that's a true test of a good speaker or a
Yeah.
comedian. Absolutely. Yeah. So do you have some examples maybe of like good and bad branding messaging that you want to share or that come top of
Well,
mind? Or
with messaging, I'm a big proponent of selling the truth. That's a phrase that always comes up in interviews. It comes up on my show, Yes Brand, a lot. It comes up also in my book. I have a book that that is coming out in the fall, hopefully, that will be called Selling the Truth. So, that is the biggest mistake that anybody can make, is kind of dreaming their product into some state that it doesn't really occupy, and trying to uh, you know uh, palm it off as something it isn't. So the only bad messaging is really false messaging. Um, and I think, consider your audience. The what's funny to you personally, or what's funny to both of us, may not be funny to the person we're selling the message and the product to. It doesn't have to be funny to everybody, and it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to capitulate to any norms at all. But the audience is the arbiter of what is funny. And if you pick your audience well, then you should choose the content for them, with the same care.
right. So do you, as far as your daily practice, do you do a lot of writing to come
Yeah.
up and get in that creative mindset?
Yeah. I mean, I think that like a lot of people, I'm a reactor. Yes brand comes from the improv rule of yes and. You accept the offer that your scene partner in an improv group gives you, and you build on it. You take it somewhere else. So with yes brand, I talk to the client and I hear what they're saying and what they're feeling and where their passions lie. That inspires me to create. So the writing won't be like, I just get up in the morning and I want to write. It would be, what did my client give me the day before? Usually I let it percolate, overnight. And then in the morning, I'll have ideas and I'll be like, oh, I can't wait to go sit down and start fleshing out these ideas. So the hope is always to have the day end with something that I need to kind of sleep on, so that I can write and respond the next day.
Mhm. And then do you find yourself as a reader in general, or do you like to, like, are you a connoisseur of like attention grabbing headlines and marketing pieces? Do you pay attention and follow all that? Or
Yeah. Yeah, I do, because I'm a fan of the medium. So when I do see really clever stuff, and I'm trying to think, I know you're going to say, do you have any examples of a, you know, I'm trying to think of what I just saw, because I did just see a couple things. Maybe they'll pop into my head, but I do really appreciate good advertising. It could be print, it could be billboards, it could be organic media that they're hoping will go viral, or it could be a paid TV ad campaign. But I'm also sensitive to the stuff that doesn't work. And I don't like to bag on it. I don't like to say, oh, this was terrible, this was celebrate the things that work, and learn from why they work, focus on that, but we don't need to spend a lot of time as branding people, marketers, on things that don't work. Because usually it's just a disconnect with, like I talked about, with the audience. They disconnected, they misjudged the audience.
Yeah, I think, I had a brief stint in the cannabis industry, and now I'm in crypto. And I cannot believe how many people miss the mark with humor in cannabis, which is like one of the best industries that you could have a lot of leeway with. And then now with crypto, it's, it's financial stuff. It's kind of dry. I mean, there's always headlines coming out, but I mean, the only thing you ever see with crypto are dank memes, and yeah, they're funny along the way. Do you ever get yourself in creating memes, or like think about some of these photos and like create your own meme or anything?
Well, yeah, sometimes. I think it's interesting that you bring up these two examples, because I've done some work in the cannabis field, and what I've learned is, well, there are a lot of regulation issues. There's things that make it harder to promote, to market cannabis products, obviously, where they're not legal or approved everywhere. Um, so that it kind of hampered it a little bit. But I came up with a concept for a cannabis product a few years ago, and I was really disappointed that they didn't use it. And the idea was, although now that I kind of reflect on it, it's a little incendiary. But the idea was that there were uh, jihadists sacking a temple, an ancient temple in Syria or somewhere, and they were, and one guy was eating cookies, and while the rest of them were going nuts, and he was the only one that was kind of chilling out. And then the friend was like, well, uh, if you're Abdullah, if you're gonna have cookies, I hope you brought enough for everybody. And he did, and he gives out the cookies, and they're edibles, and they're pot cookies. So everybody starts to chill out, and then they realize, why are we destroying this beautiful art? Why are we doing all this stuff? We should enjoy life. We should take it easy. We should relax. And they just kind of get high with these cookies. And the tagline was, friends don't let friends jihad.
Oh, geez.
and and for some reason the client was a little scared of doing that. But I did buy the URL, toke it over, because that was the URL we were going to use, tokeitover.com. And
That's pretty good.
so I kept it. I still have that. But but that thing was, as much as cannabis would seem to fall in a looser, more relaxed vibe when it comes to the industry, and this was again like 3 years ago, I think people were worried about even advertising cannabis. It just was, there were too many regulations, too many things. With crypto, I don't know. I'm not as familiar with it. I have some familiarity with the industry, but I haven't really written creative for it. But I do think a lot of the people in crypto take it very seriously, and when they're trying to establish when credibility is such a huge part of what crypto is about, verification, and when you're getting into NFTs, and you're getting, you know, IP and all this stuff, it's very, very it is serious stuff. So then if you're too flippant about it, maybe that doesn't work. Maybe you can't make fun of something you're trying to establish.
Yeah, I think not necessarily making fun, but there is that room for sure. Unfortunately, we have plenty of uh, bad apples out there. Let's just call it that.
Yeah.
That are
Yeah.
ruining it for everybody else. Uh, and it also brings to mind, part of my background was as a traditional financial advisor, and I worked in a very sexy part of the industry, which was Social Security, and I wrote a book about it. And I'm like, gosh, how do I make Social Security sexy? And I was talking to a friend, and she just blurts out, Social Security is a lot like your sex drive. You hope it's there when you need it.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, it's a serious subject and you're having fun with it. And I think there's that room for crypto to do fun tidbits like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm open to it. I'm open to spitballing ideas. How is the industry doing now? Right? It kind of took a little bit of a hit. Um, where does it stand right now?
Yeah, the people who are, if you think about it from like an evolution of the internet, that's where this is all kind of tracking,
Right.
is the people who are serious about it, the innovative leaders are building emerging companies, and they know that they need to build during a recession or down times. So those are the ones that we have our eyes on. And right now, Bitcoin is over 0.5% of the whole market capitalization of crypto. So that one is like the tried and tested protocol.
Mhm.
And now with like this whole evolution of the internet theory, we're seeing more and more people provide good solutions, like actually providing utility. And those are the ones that are starting to gain more and more community members, users, adopters. So that's what we're excited about.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't mean to turn the tables on you, so from interviewee to interviewer, but
Hey, any chance to evangelize of, in the crypto and
yeah,
blockchain
right.
industry is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you have kind of like favorite clients um, or platforms or mediums that you like to use?
Well, I didn't get to where I am by favoring one client over another.
Mhm.
Well, I have favorite clients. Let me tell you about the ones that suck. But
Or industries, you could call it, or
industries. No, I
niches,
mean
because you are the daddy of niche
the
PR.
the daddy. Yeah, somebody called me that. I'm probably not going to keep that in the bio, but it was like you're a daddy of niche PR, and the reason they said that was because they had known me for a long time, and when I started out in the advertising industry, I was repping commercial directors, directors of TV commercials, composers for TV commercials, editors, visual effects artists, which already was a niche. And there was nobody doing their PR. They didn't have publicists for that field. There were magazines, trade magazines. What I started doing was, because I loved writing and I loved writing about them, is I would write about their shoots. I would write their bios. I would be on set and I would do little interviews and I would send these to the ad trades and they would run them. And so that's what a publicist does. Write about their client, talk about their client and get them press. And so I started doing that. And I was honestly, I think probably the first person to do it really formally. I started by doing it. I was on staff at places. And in addition to being an agent, I was also a publicist. Then eventually I just opened a PR firm. And I had a couple of PR firms in that niche that were really at the top of the industry. And that's where that daddy of niche PR thing came from.
That's cool. All right, so kind of want to get into like a little polarizing little pivot here. The whole woke movement, is important to a lot of people, and it's just part of society now. Uh, but where do you, and obviously big brands are being proud, taking a proud response. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
Where do you see this kind of fitting in, where it's not so polarizing, and yes, it is all about acceptance, tolerance, but it seems to be backfiring on a lot of these brands. Where
Yeah.
do you kind of see this kind of trending towards, or way to still get their message across, but without losing a lot of customers?
Well, I think where I had mentioned, earlier that you have to calibrate what your message is to the audience that you're speaking to. And this current state of affairs that we're in is more a reflection of the polarization among audiences than it is about the particular opinions of brands or brand leaders. And what they're finding, what companies like InBev with Budweiser are finding is that they have to kind of make a decision about how they feel about things that are relevant to their audience. And so what's happening is companies that would not have thought they even needed to take a stand on a subject are forced to. Nike has always courted, not that they court controversy per se, it's that they don't shy away from taking a position, what you'd call a societal position. They have a certain ethos, and they're going to manifest that, and it's going to be honored, and it's not going to waver. But that doesn't mean that every brand has to have an opinion about everything. If it's not relevant to your audience, or it's not relevant between your product and your audience, and then you don't have to say anything about it. Specifically when it comes to something like woke is a word. Words are words can be dangerous when weaponized. When people use a word because they want to get a certain reaction, and the word which was pretty simple to begin with, woke, if you look at its documented beginnings, basically is just a term for awareness. You're aware of the world around you. You're accepting the diversity of the world around you, and you're respecting it, and you just get it. You get that there's. I apologize. My dog is barking. See, your pivot has polarized my dog.
Part of the show.
But if you look at it, it's pretty simple. It's not a very provocative word. It's not, but everything can be taken and used and manipulated. And so what happens is we have to kind of know ourselves. Like you saw, with this whole Budweiser thing, Garth Brooks made a statement, having just opened his Friends in Low Places, franchise of bars, was like, well, we're going to carry all kinds of beers. Diversity is the key to solving a lot of our problems. We're going to carry Budweiser. If some people don't like it, you don't have to come in. There's a million other bars you can go to that you can do whatever you want. But what he was really saying is no assholes needn't apply. It's like, if you're going to be hating on someone, there's not really you don't really need to patronize my establishment, because we don't. So he took a stand that was very consistent with his music and his life that he's lived. And and now that personal branding thing is easier when Friends in Low Places is obviously created by Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks is a person. He's a brand. He's one of the biggest personal brands in music history. But at the same time, he's there to say, this is what we stand for. It's harder with a publicly held company. It's harder with Frito-Lay or Coca-Cola. It's harder when there isn't a person to make the decision. Who's making the decision? But Nike's a good example where they still manage to reflect a certain ethos, even though Phil Knight isn't involved anymore. Same thing with Disney. You would point to Walt Disney. Walt Disney, flawed as he was as an individual on different fronts, created a certain dream that has been perpetuated and delighted people for century, and that brand kind of has even superseded or exceeded him in a way, because for example, if he was anti-Semitic, or what he's kind of been, known for, that hasn't been the attitude of the company. You know, um, there's been an openness and an inclusiveness around Disney that kind of you know makes sense when you think of this delightful place where everybody's welcome, and it's magical, right? Um, and so I think those beliefs evolve and eventually take hold. In the best case scenario, they add to the world in a positive way, and aren't small minded. So sometimes we feel like we gotta are we on A or B? Do we choose A or B, and they're both equal? They're equal. It's just one is blue and one is green, you know. But that's not really what's happening. We have to be honest with ourselves and analyze why we believe what we believe, you know.
Absolutely. The So a lot of this comes down to culture, and that's, to me, is becoming more of a challenge now as we're getting used to remote working. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is done through messaging from leadership. Are you, do you have a take on that?
In what sense?
Just like, I guess, digging a little deeper in what we're talking about here, not necessarily, in the woke perspective, but more just how culture among the company is, kind of driven by leadership, and
Uh,
then disseminated through, the workforce, and then, the customers kind of feed into that a little bit too. I
yeah.
guess that's more where I'm thinking this could probably go a little bit in the
Yes.
conversation.
Well, it's a good direction, Charlie, because I do feel like there's a disconnect sometimes with the messaging within and outside a company, that sometimes they will have an image. They think the brand is the image. They think it's the advertising, the billboards, whatever it might be, the tagline. But inside the company, the culture is not consistent and cohesive. And so I'm a big fan of the vertical integration of messaging. So when I go to a client, and like I said, sometimes I'll kind of suss out how they're functioning internally. I'll look at where the core message resonates at the very, very basic level. The people that keep the company running, or the keep people that maintain the building, or the people that are, in the traffic department, whatever it is. Do they feel like they're part of this belief system, or do they feel like they're supporting a system that's just like a bullshit factory and is just kind of putting out, material to sell stuff? And that's not a crime that happens, but it's going to be hard for that company to retain that workforce, because they're the workforce feels like they're getting shortchanged. It's like the person who says, "I would never eat in that restaurant. I worked there." I worked in the kitchen. I would never eat in that restaurant.
Right.
And that's not a good situation. So sometimes the messaging help, the communications help, the writing I do is writing writing within the company, because number one, they deserve at least the quality of writing that's going outside, and they deserve the same consideration and respect that the company gives its customers. And if there's an imbalance either way, let's say the company was, treated everybody who worked at the company to all this great stuff, but then they used fake ingredients that they lied about in the product and poisoned their customers, right? Well, that's not good either. You know, let's strive for, consistency. I'm not judging the company at all. I'm just saying let's have consistency, consistent policies inside, consistent quality outside, and that way the audience can be loyal to something. It's hard to engender loyalty to something that isn't real.
Yeah, consistency is key, and even with kids, since I'm a
Oh
dad.
yes.
Right. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back and jump into some more fun conversation. Okay, quick plug for Goose Magazine. As the publisher of Goose, we have an actual way for you to disconnect, read about digital assets, crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin. Not only it's more like a playbook. So we do include best practices. So just like the golden goose fable, we want to keep the golden goose alive. Don't kill the goose. So, we're having fun with this too. And again, I'm always looking for fun ideas with, how to get our message across. So super excited to have Hersh on with us today. And so next, Hersh, what do you think is, maybe do you have some pointers for our audience? A lot of them are, work at home, self-employed, like any like best practices that you can maybe help us with to incorporate creativity or eye-catching headlines in our messages?
Well, we've talked about some of that stuff. Now my head is on the Goose Mag thing, because I like Goose, and I like the whole just application of it, and the golden goose. And there just seems to me that there's so much you can do with the golden goose analogy, and keeping the golden goose alive. Don't kill the goose. The goose is loose, whatever it might be. There could be so many campaigns that you can do with that magazine to but okay, so I wandered my way into a best practice. A best practice is, don't let your creativity take you off course. You're gonna have to stay with what you're trying to serve. So if Goose Mag is about crypto, and I'm going to do a campaign that's, don't kill the goose, I can't get too far away from the world of crypto, or it's going to, number one, lose that audience that we talked about, or number two, it won't land. And the other piece of advice that's kind of a sister piece of advice with that is simplicity. Keep it simple. There you'll hear a lot. Don't write on a level above 8th grade, or don't, we hear this a lot about audiences, but I give my audiences more credit than that. It isn't that it has to be at a remedial level. It's that it has to be clear. There's a very big difference between being intelligent and speaking to your audience with the presumption that they are intelligent, and overcrowding the message board with too many ideas, too many pieces. Our job, yours and mine, should be to simplify the things that we can share and make them as easy to adopt as possible.
Yeah, I think that's very important, especially in a scary world of digital assets, crypto. And that's one of the biggest barriers. And, and I've always tried to do that, especially in Social Security, is take complicated topics and break it down into simple, digestible sound bites or,
Right.
copy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good. So you talked about intelligence. Part of what you're getting into now is AI, and let's chat about that. Obviously there's the fear-based people, taking away jobs and work. But where are you seeing this tie-in and for productivity, creativity, and things like that?
I think just as we, it's funny. I was gonna say we're only human, which is the point in a way, which is that we have this tendency to get carried away with things. Like we take things to their most outrageous conclusion and then worry about that instead of saying, okay, large language models are are very useful in gathering existing information and making it grammatically correct, uh, concise in many cases. That's a great thing. But to um, assume that technology is replacing a human uh, is just not where we're at right now. And I don't even know that I don't know who that would even really ultimately serve. So I think run the risk of being a little harsh in my evaluation, but I would say that that vision is kind of a paranoid fantasy. What we should be focusing on is integrating AI into our creative process. And as such, I think writers, editors, those are the people who probably understand AI best and are best suited to engage with it. And that's why I'm creating this service called HumanEyes, human EYES, and the idea is that when a piece of content really matters, we're not talking about a report or dry reading. We're talking about something that needs to grab the audience, something that needs to get their attention, activate them, call to action, something like that. It needs human eyes. It's going to need a pair of human eyes that are going to take this output and sculpt it into something amazing and something that isn't just amazing because it took 3 seconds. It's amazing because when somebody reads it, they're not going to fall asleep. They're going to wake up. And I think that's the level at which we can really start to push the envelope. How exciting can we make written content?
Yeah. So do you find yourself, I guess, digging deeper in how this is all evolving? I mean, it started out with chat GPT, and now, gosh, I think I've seen 20 different platforms pop up. Are you digging into some of these other tools yet?
Yeah, but I think we are still in a very experimental phase. Um, and so I haven't been a person to want to jump into the conversation from the point of critiquing it so much. I would simply say I'm exploring it. So the perspective I just shared is pretty much where I shake out. I am seeing a lot of new iterations of various things. What I'm mostly seeing is uh, things that are um, that are designed for certain markets and purposes. So there's something called Capshow that's for people in podcasting, and it's constantly evolving, and it's got a tremendous amount of promise. And then there's this Magic Bookifier that is the client of mine that has this Hitmaker service that helps convert the books from existing audio and video into book form, but with the guidance of experienced creatives and publishers. And so the best work that I've seen come out through AI is in the right collaboration between the human and the where what I say is that HumanEyes is where artificial meets actual. It's called artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence means it isn't real. It isn't really intelligent. And that's true. It isn't. That's what it will tell you. Ask ChatGPT if it watched the movie that it's reviewing, and it'll tell you, no, I can't watch a movie. I can only look through what was written about a movie. I asked ChatGPT to write a review of Silence of the Lambs that was original and didn't use any published reviews. And it wrote a review, and it was a very competent review. And I asked it, have you seen the movie? And it said, no, I can't see the movie. But I did strive to not use any text from any published interview. So technically it's original. But what is the phrase that comes up more than anything in response from GPT when you give it a prompt is, sorry for the misunderstanding. Sorry for the misunderstanding. I mean, that's the challenge. We're so amazed by the magic trick of the 2 seconds that we don't stop to think of, well, everything that just came out may be bullshit. We don't know that it's actually accurate at all. We don't even know that the quote that it's pulling is a legitimate quote. It pulled it from somewhere. It said something somewhere, but it's far from fact checked, and as technology improves, we'll also hopefully grow. Why is the idea that technology will grow and advance and humans will remain stagnant? That's absurd, right? So why doesn't the advent of large language models and generative AI mean that we're going to become better writers as a result, or in tandem?
Yeah, and I think positioning it as an evolution of technology, and it's now a tool that we have to enhance our creativity, productivity. It is a healthy way to look at this. You mentioned the paranoia, and that's crazy how bad it got there for a while, and it still is for some people. Have you jumped into any of the art AI yet?
I've seen it at work. It's also fun and interesting. I haven't gotten involved in it. I have what do I have here? Let me see if I can pull. Okay. So I have this, which was, I put in the company is called Freeft.io, FreeFT. It's not really Freeft. It's FreeFT.io. And I was at Podfest, and they were showing there, and put in the characteristics of the character that I wanted to be perceived as, and it created this 4 frame vision of who I am, or something like that. This is something that we did in 5 minutes, but I found it really interesting the way it processed the information, and obviously that was an AI tool. So I thought that was very, very interesting, but I do feel like we should push things to their limit. Let's just see. Let's see what the absolute most is that we can do with a certain thing. Fear does not help a society grow or overcome its problems.
Yeah, I think there's always that element, even the internet back in the days. that was interesting to grow up through that and to see the fear behind that. And same with crypto, same with AI.
Yeah.
So we're getting close. Are there any other topics that you want to make sure we chat about, or
Oh, yeah, you're the host, Charlie.
Any final punchlines?
Final punchlines. final punchlines.
Are we
No,
burying the
no.
lead here somewhere?
This is wonderful. I do feel like what I said about fear is leading to a good point, which is that a lot of us who are creative artists, writers, people who, let's just say, often create things from nothing but their imagination, will look at science or technology the way we look at math, and they'll say, well, we don't do that. That's not our thing. We're not that smart, or we're not that, we're not wired that way. And what I've learned from meeting more and more people in the tech world is that we're actually all wired exactly that way. They're imagining something, they're seeing something in their mind, they're trying to figure out how to make it. The difference is they're not using words, they're using machines and code and technology. But the imagination and the dreaming part we share. We're dreamers. We're all dreamers. And if you think about it, go into any field that you can name, science, even math, anything at all, we're dreamers, really. That's what human beings are. So everything that we've created is a function of our trying to realize our dreams. And on that level alone, we're all connected and we all have different skills, but we're all dream makers.
Yeah, that's good. I'm trying to remember the Einstein quote, something like, imagination are your thoughts having fun, or something like that. I'm totally botching it at the moment, but it's something like that. And it was interesting. I don't know if you saw, I think it was just yesterday, how one of Einstein's that theory of like space is in waves in our universe. So every now and then something will pop up about how his dreams are becoming more realities more and more every day. And crazy to think this was 80, 90 years ago.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's right. And like Willy Wonka said, when he brings the kids into the chocolate room, and he says, this is where my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams. So yeah, there are plenty of great quotes in that about imagination and reality, and what truly can be real if we put our minds to it.
Absolutely. Well, enjoyed this thoroughly. I hope our audience did as well. Just have fun out there with your messaging, get creative, get your point across in a simple way, but keep it eye-catching, and you never know when you go viral. So that's cool. Right?
That's true.
Yeah. So, it's been interesting to see how, like, where, these different communities kind of reside. Crypto is mostly Twitter, and there's a reason why Elon Musk is focusing on Twitter. So,
yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Hersh. Please make sure to search him out on LinkedIn, just his full name, Hersh Rephun, and that's Rephun, and check out his website with a .com on the end. So thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next week on Goose Live. And we're going to close with this.